But I guess we can move on to the next one, Sid, if you just want to talk about that one for a little bit.
Sure. Their next jumpstart is Alice Taiyo by Takahide Totsuno. This series is a musical manga. It's about this musician named Taiyo Suzuki who kind of like just makes his own music, and he uploaded it onto basically YouTube and stuff. And overseas, a singer called Alice, high school singer, she saw it that when she was like in the States, and then she moved to Japan and moved to Suzuki's school. And by chance, she happened to encounter him and recognized that he was the guy that wrote that song she really liked. And so then, she tries to get Suzuki to team up with her so they can form a band. And their goal is basically to win a Grammy, to get to the Grammys. And that's basically the plot in a nutshell. And through the course of these 3 chapters of the Jumpstart run, Taiyo's character arc is that he basically needs to overcome his stage fright and his fear of performing and fear of basically being mocked and ridiculed for his music, because he's always worried that his music isn't good enough. He's embarrassed to perform because he doesn't think it is good enough. But ultimately, when a chance arrives where the lights are all gone due to lightning striking the auditorium, and so Alice's mic doesn't work, and so she needs some backup music. And so, under the cover of darkness, Taiyo works up the confidence, to play the piano and provide a musical accompaniment for Alice to sing alongside. And it's a really great performance. And then someone records that performance. And I don't know if there's been a follow-up on that. I don't remember.
I think somebody made a comment about how it was getting a lot of attention online, it was getting a lot of views or whatnot. Because at the end of the 3rd chapter, I think they get an email or something or message from a television producer who wants them to perform on television. So yeah, I'm sure that's probably what led to that. But no, yeah. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the series so far. Not that I think it's I certainly don't think it's bad or anything. I think it's really interesting so far. I think it's more so that it takes 3 chapters for the series to kind of set up what is the actual goal here? Where is the finish line? What are they actually striving towards? Because but before Alice makes any kind of mention of the Grammys, she's just kind of yeah, we're gonna make beautiful music and we're gonna take over the world. Her intentions are a little vague, and I kind of like that we kind of have a clear goal as to what they're actually working towards. So I think, if anybody wants to get into Alice and Taiyo, I think it's necessary to read those first 3 chapters. For me, the first chapter wasn't really enough. I thought it was interesting, but it was I'll give it a little bit longer to see where it's going.
I think the first 3 chapters are just a good use of basically the Jumpstart run. I don't know how conscious the Japanese mangaka are of how English readers are, previewing their series. But in terms of having a short mini arc right at the beginning of the series to kind of develop Taiyo as a character within these 3 chapters, and then by the end of the 3rd chapter kind of set up, this is where they are going to go. This is their goal in the series. I think it works quite well to have that 3 chapters set up. It kind of allows them not to cram all of that story just within the first chapter, but spend the first chapter just focused on establishing the characters, and then the next 2 chapters work as a pair to kind of, let's close off this element of the Taiyo's character arc that we introduced in the first chapter. And then let's use these 2 chapters to introduce the goal and then potential places these characters will go from this point. So I think it worked out in terms of how it was planned, in terms of where each chapter led, the direction each chapter led to.
I guess my question is like, do you feel like you have any desire to like, if this were picked up by Jump, like, well, I mean, I guess it's useless because you would probably read it anyway, but like,
Yeah.
I guess my question is, how much do you want to read this weekly compared to, I guess, Seiji Tanaka in particular?
A lot more than Seiji Tanaka, actually, because I found the characters of Taiyo and Alice quite endearing. I think, well, they are simple characters right now. Just the characterization of them is entertaining and interesting enough for me. Like, I like Taiyo's character arc within these first 3 chapters of getting over, like, stage fright and getting over being afraid of people, criticizing and being very harsh about his music and on him for his music. I like Alice's upbeat personality. I like her playfulness. I like how she's often drawn with kind of cat-like mischievous expressions. She's a lot of fun. And I think both of them make quite a good pair. And I think that their character designs are pretty nicely drawn. And I like the art in the series in general. So I think the combination of elements, also, of course, this being about a premise that I just find myself very interested in. I always have really enjoyed musical manga and music-based series, and even in a soundless medium, just the enthusiasm and passion for music that is expressed by the characters generally is enough to endear me or like get me to buy into the series even if I'm not hearing the music itself while I'm, reading the manga. And I think that the series does do a good job in order to show, hey, these characters are having a lot of fun playing and they're having a lot of fun singing. And so that goes a long way in, making it work as a musical based manga. So, yeah, I think the combination of elements, again, just is a lot more appealing and endearing to me than Seiji Tanaka, which there were a lot of disparate elements in Seiji Tanaka I liked, but not most of the elements, like in Alice Taiyo, did I, find completely, up my alley, or completely, like, to my, taste and, like, what I really like about series, or what I find interesting in a premise and stuff.
That's interesting. Because I find it funny how, like, I feel like I'm kind of the opposite of you, where it's like, I'm actually, as far as just, like, reading something weekly is concerned, I'm a lot more interested in reading Seiji Tanaka weekly than I am Alice Taiyo. And I think that's because Alice Taiyo seems to be more of, like, as far as the pace goes, a bit of a slower series in comparison. I feel like Alice Taiyo is something I would actually... I feel like I would get more out of it if I read Alice Taiyo in chunks more than, like, just one chapter at a time. Because it feels like so far, this is the kind of series where, like, you're not going to get a whole ton of the story, like, in every chapter per week. That's just my, I guess, opinion of it so far. I don't know, like... I guess, obviously, I don't know anything that happens past chapter 3, so maybe I could be wrong, but, I still have interest in reading this, especially considering, like, it's kind of in that same category as, like, Act H, where it's, like, I really just want to see more Jump manga about, like, the arts, like, about singing and about acting and, just stuff like that. Like, I find that a really interesting, like, subject to cover in shonen manga. And I really kind of like this trend that hopefully they'll keep going with in the future. I like this new direction for some of their manga that they're taking. But yeah, Alice Taiyo in particular, I liked it. But again, yeah, I think this is something I would rather let build up and just kind of check back with every once in a while to catch up. But again, that's just me personally.
In terms of story content, I think that Alice Taiyo has a lot of story in each chapter, but compared with Seiji Tanaka, there isn't a resolution in every chapter in the same way Seiji Tanaka has. Whereas the first 2 chapters of Seiji Tanaka have a conflict, and that conflict is resolved in that chapter. Whereas with Alice Taiyo, things bleed over into the other chapters. And so within chapters 1 and 2, you don't start off with a subject and that subject isn't resolved within that chapter in of itself.
No, yeah, I think you said it best. Yeah, I think that's the thing keeping me from wanting to read this weekly at least right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this seems like a series with more long-term storytelling and probably longer form story arcs, where Seiji Tanaka, like you said, has a quicker pace. And towards the beginning, I can definitely see Seiji Tanaka having more episodic style chapters, and even when it moves into arcs being more shorter, brisker arcs, kind of in the vein of Black Clover. Whereas Alice Taiyo would definitely be a series where I gotta imagine like Beck, even though Beck was a monthly manga, and so, that also prolonged its pace, but kind of in that vein, storylines in Beck and Nana for that matter, I guess with all the musical manga examples I can think of, like storylines would last quite a while, and so the per chapter kind of story was not necessarily the most satisfying, but the long-term storytelling was very satisfying. And I can definitely see that being the case for Alice Taiyo as well, even with a weekly pace.
Yeah. Also, like, this is also just the kind of thing that, like, I would love to see animated just because, it's dealing in music. Not that I necessarily think, like, this series does a bad job at, like, depicting music or anything, just that I would love to hear these performances come to life. Like, I hope if Alice Taiyo gets a big enough, like, fan base and gets enough, like, attention and interest, I hope maybe you can get a really good anime. That would be really cool.
That's definitely a barrier to entry for some people when it comes to musical manga. The fact that in a series about music, you can't hear the music.
In general, like, I can't imagine how hard it is to actually try and depict music in a soundless medium. Like, that has to be a challenge.
It's very difficult, but miraculously, there's been several of incredibly successful and incredibly good series about music that just knock it out of the park. Right now, I think Alice Taiyo is doing just enough to get it across. I think that it can definitely do even better because I've seen the heights that that kind of story can reach in manga in series like Beck. So we'll just have to see if this series runs for a long time, whether it can capture the emotion of a performance, of a song, without having the music for the reader to listen to when they're, reading the manga.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that is also, again, a barrier to entry for a lot of people. Without the music, they just can't get into a series like this. I remember that even with Straighten Up, back a few years ago, people couldn't get into it because they were dancing along to music. But because you didn't hear that music they were dancing to, like, it was just hard to get a sense of, like, the rhythm of their dancing. So it's definitely been a complaint I've heard lobby at series like this that rely on a musical element. So, in that sense, I feel like Seiji Tanaka might be more appealing to more people, but then again, I don't know necessarily if, like, in general, people have a problem with musical manga. And I guess it probably isn't a problem for most people considering how many successful musical manga there are. But who knows if Shonen Jump readers, that demographic will feel the same.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. But no, yeah, I think I think both of these jump starts in general were pretty good though.
Yeah, I was very happy with them. In general, I feel like this year has been pretty good with the jumpstart so far. No real misses, I would say. At least nothing that I can think of. Well, actually, Ziga. I didn't get Ziga. And quite rightfully, it was very quickly canceled. And the first of those canceled within that round. In fact, Jujutsu Kaisen seems the only one of that round with any legs. It's actually doing quite well for itself, which... I actually gave it a lot of credit in our review back when we reviewed it. So, hey, I made a good call there.
I guess so. I mean, I'm still rooting for both Act Age and Noah's Notes, but I mean, yeah, I think so far, just me personally, I've been the least receptive to Jujutsu Kaisen, ironically speaking, now that it's like, I guess apparently doing pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see if like, you know, I guess maybe if it gets picked up or something and like we review like the first like year or two's worth of chapters or something in the future. I don't know. I'm kind of interested in seeing where it goes as far as that goes, seeing like, you know, because I remember being kind of lukewarm on it, but like I'm interested in seeing if it actually gets better, but I guess that's neither here nor there. But no, yeah, I agree. Like jump starts this year have been very strong, and I've liked pretty much most of them, as far as I can remember. I'm interested in seeing, I mean, I don't know, I feel like it'll probably end up being Act Age, but I wonder if like, I'm wondering what my favorite will be like by the end of the year when we do our like best of manga episode.
Yeah, the year is only a little more than half done, so we still probably will get one or two more rounds of jump starts before the year is over. So there might be some surprises left in store yet. Left in store yet. Left in store yet.